Yo, what's going on, people? As you know, these riots and protests have been going on recently throughout the country. And I just want to know is what is their end goal, really? Like what are they trying to achieve throughout these protests and riots? Because if you're trying to achieve any type of change that involves legislative change or systematic change, that route is gone. That's out the window. You've closed off all your opportunities to gain that said change that you want. Now, after these riots, what are you guys going to do? What are you guys planning to do after these riots, man? If the type of change you want is change in peace and police brutality and all that, you further yourself away from actually achieving that goal. That change is never going to come, man. What black people gotta understand is change is not gonna come through the white man, man. It's gonna come through us as a community, as a people. First, we gotta do is we gotta limit single motherhood and establish a patriarchal figure in the single mother household. For the simple fact that a single mom can't raise kids by herself, man. No matter how hard she tries, most of them just ends up in jail or try to do some other gang activity. For the simple fact that once they reach a certain age, like around 13, 11, 12, they're not gonna care what their mother have to say to them. Real talk. So it's up to have a father in the house in order to guide that child into where they have to go. Both the mother and the father are important in a child's life. You know what I mean? Can't just have one of them. You gotta have both. So that's one thing we gotta change. Another thing we gotta change is we gotta reattach ourselves to the Most High, the scriptures, man. Because that's where we establish our culture at. Too many black people reattach themselves to self-aggrandizement and a lot of narcissism, thinking that they are God. How you think you better than God, man? What can you do that God can't do, man? Like, how do you think you're better than God, man? Come on now. Have to realign yourself with the Most High and the scriptures. And no, I'm not talking about Christianity. Don't get it twisted. I'm not talking about Christianity. They do not use the Bible as a tool for us blacks to establish a culture, but rather as a prop to enforce their Luciferian beliefs, man. So Christianity, I'm not talking about Christianity, no. I'm strictly talking about the most high in the scriptures. That is it. That's it. No Christianity involved, nothing. Third thing we gotta do, we gotta understand the money system and have knowledge of the economy here. Because once we have that and start to build our financial equity throughout our communities, then the other races are gonna take us seriously. Because right now, to the other races, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, we're a joke, bro. We're a joke. They don't give a fuck about us. They don't. No matter how much they tell you they do, they don't. Subconsciously they don't. And I see a lot of these protests, and what's so mind-boggling me about these protests is y'all fighting about black issues, what goes on in the black community, how much issues we have, but yet y'all allowing these other races to invite themselves into the issues, man. Like, this is a black issue, black issues, right? Black people only. Shouldn't be any white people there with y'all or helping y'all, nothing like that. Cause I don't know. To me, that just make us look weak, man. When I see that, it makes me think, wow, we can't. They believe, wow, y'all can't do this by yourselves. Y'all need our help. Y'all need our help in order to get power. And really, they're just looking down on us when they see white people at our protests, man. I mean, it's ridiculous. Another solution that I have forth, this is the final one, in order for us to establish changes, we gotta invest more in the black owned businesses. We do. We gotta support our own, man. You see a lot of races do that. We gotta start following suit. Once we do that, then we're gonna be taken seriously as a people. But these protests, whether it's peaceful, whether it's violent, it's not gonna work in the long run. It's not gonna work at all, cause there's no end goal to it, man. Guys protest about these issues when really the issues of single motherhood and establishing a father figure in the household and establishing our culture through the Most High and the scriptures, those issues should take precedence over this. My opinion, I feel like those issues right there I listed should take precedence over police brutality. Sure, police brutality is an issue, but it's not as important as those three I listed. I don't see it as more important as that, because we don't have a culture at all. We don't. And all this boils down to, man, is just culture. We don't have one, man. We do not have one. I feel as though black people are not mad at the police brutality situation. I think that they're more mad at themselves because they're more confused on what they need to do, man. They don't. I don't think they know what to do unless they ask help from the white man, which is another thing that mind boggles me. How you say you're gonna ask help from your? How you say that white people are oppressing you when at the same token you're gonna ask for their help? That don't make no sense, man. It doesn't make any sense. If you want to really prove the white man, son, you don't ask for their help at all. These black protests, peaceful protests, black people only, man. That is it. You don't need these other races and these other groups trying to inject themselves into your own protests. They're just diverting attention from your own protests. Try to plug themselves in just to get more attention than you guys. These white people don't have your best interests at heart. They don't. They don't give a fuck about y'all. None of these racists do. They see us as a joke. Big joke. We have no culture. We barely have any knowledge on the economic system, the money system here. And most of our leaders are entertainers, athletes, and all that other stuff. While you see at other races, if you look at their leaders, they're mostly diplomats and government officials, man. How are we gonna have leaders that are entertainers? Like Malcolm X said, they're clowns, fam. Clowns. But anyway, I just want to know, what is y'all end goal and what y'all gonna do after this? If you're really trying to solicit change, I believe you solicit change through establishing a culture through the Most High and the scriptures. You eliminate single motherhood in your communities, have knowledge on the money system, and support black-owned businesses. What do you guys think? Am I right? Do I have some points? Do you think the protests and violent riots are gonna work? Because for me, this is just a short term. I think this is like a fire that's gonna burn out quick. No change is gonna be, nothing's gonna be changed. What I do see these riots and protests doing really is only causing a rift between the race relations between blacks and whites. Not only that, I'm not gonna be surprised if they legislated pseudo Jim Crow laws after these are done, man. I'm not gonna be surprised if those things happen. So before y'all go, I'm gonna add some clips that I got from my guy, not from my guy, but someone I admire, which is Chronicles of Judah. He's going to highlight some of the issues that I've talked about in this video, and hopefully you guys have a better understanding as to what I am talking about. So peace, man.
We can't look at the so-called white man and say, how come you don't look at me as a leader, when our own women do not look at us as leaders. Once the other races see the so-called black man take back over his home, then they'll be more willing to trust you. Because as of right now, the other races, they work through the black woman. They don't work through you. If the police come to a black household, they ask to speak to the woman. Why is that? It's because they know that the overall architecture of the black household lends towards the woman. They do not respect the authority of the so-called black man. And there are a lot of other issues pertaining to that. We know about slavery and so on and so forth, how the so-called black man has been emasculated to a great degree in this society, really self-emasculated to a degree, because the so-called black man rejects his God. When you reject your God, you reject your culture. When you reject your culture, the Most High is going to allow your woman to reject you. So these are the reasons why the so-called black man has a very difficult time when it comes to being entrusted with power. Any one of us who have worked in corporate America knows they do not want to see a so-called black male supervisor, manager, executive, etc. But they'll put that black woman up as a supervisor, that so-called Hispanic woman up, the black brown woman as the supervisor or the manager, especially over a large group of other so-called blacks, usually consisting of black men, because they're trying to reinforce that energy of the woman being above the black man. So that's why we see this all over the NFL, where so-called black men are trying to figure the woman up, the black brown woman as the supervisor or the manager, especially over a large group of other so-called blacks, usually consisting of black men, because they're trying to reinforce that energy of the woman being above the black man. So that's why we see this all over the NFL, where so-called black men are trying to figure, how can I get a head coaching job? And then beyond that, the NFL, as most of us know, is a monopoly. And whenever you have a monopoly, that means that they're going to go above and beyond to show you that you must come to me to get what you want. That means I have power over you. That means that I can do whatever the hell I want to do. So until and unless the NFL has competition in some way, shape, or form, they're going to continue to mentally and spiritually abuse the so-called black man. They understand that he's the best athlete, but they don't want him to view himself as a leader. Because once you view yourself as a leader, you start to look around and say to yourself, well, what do I need you for? Notice that none of these black athletes within the NFL will ever step up and say, we need to have more black coaches. None of them say that. I guarantee you that if they stated, we're not going to report to camp until you start to hire more black coaches, they will start to hire more black coaches. The power is always within you. But if brothers do not look for that power, if they're constantly trying to beg the so-called white man to quote unquote give us a break, they're always going to look at you as a slave. They might not say it, but that's how they're going to view you. The so-called black man has power. He just does not want to use it, or just does not understand, or is not willing to understand or acknowledge the power that he has. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
It's ridiculous. It's disgusting.
Well, I would have to ask, if there are so many so-called black men who believe that the NFL is not a place for black men to advance, why stay there? Why not just leave? Why not encourage the top black athletes to no longer participate in the NFL? Of course, we know that's not going to happen because the NFL offers the most money. So then the question begs to be asked, what matters more to you? The furtherance of your people or money? We know that for the most part, niggas talk a good one. But when it comes time to choose between that check and what they claim they're about, because they love talking about that pro-blackity shit, they're going to choose the money. When it comes to people like Odell Beckham and Todd Gurley and Antonio Brown and a lot of these other top black athletes, would you be willing to go to an all-black football league and make $150,000 a year for the cause, quote unquote, for the cause? Or are you more willing to stay in the NFL and make your $15 to $20 million a year and complain about how racist the white man is? It's up to you. But our people, they never think about things in that way. In order for you to to have any type of improvement or gain traction in any way, it demands sacrifice, especially initially. But so many so-called black men who are playing in the NFL, they don't have that type of foresight. And once again, they themselves do not have respect for the image of a black man as a leader.
You can sell tickets and make plays.
Now, if you're truly that concerned about it, the only way to convince people that you're capable of leading a large group of people is, once again, you have to show that you can lead your own household. The so-called black man has a terrible image when it comes to leading his own woman. His own woman disrespects him out in public to his face. It makes the other races look at this so-called black man as incompetent and as a fuck up. They look at this so-called black man and say, of all the nations of people, you're the only one that identifies yourself by a skin color. You're the only one who does that. Even other people who kind of sort of look like you don't do that. Like the quote unquote Africans. They say this guy's Nigerian, this guy's Ghanaian, this guy's Ugandan. You guys say I'm black. What does that even mean? That's what the racists think about the so-called black man behind closed doors. They look at our people as being massively confused. And to a degree, it's a deserved reputation.
I'm talking about political values.
Quote color, or as I would call it, race, or quote unquote nationality. I'm not quite sure about that, because many times color will stop you from understanding what someone's values are, or being willing to understand what their values are. That's why, once again, the solution is for the so-called black man to re-engineer his own life, starting with his home life, and to create options for himself. Options breed power. I don't care how much you diversify your portfolio. As long as you're in that begging state of mind, you're never going to get respect, ever. Ever.
Capping his media support. I really respect what you wrote there. The deep end is not going to talk about the symptoms, which are
issues in the home, issues with upbringing, the strong matrilineal aspect of the quote unquote black community. That's what the deep end is going to have to address first. The so-called black man not understanding the natural order of things. Because we have rejected the Most High, now we no longer have that strong bond and link with one another. The so-called black man looks at each other with an evil eye, with a suspicious eye, far more than any other community does. We don't respect one another, we don't respect ourselves, and we don't respect each other's property. That's why the so-called black woman understands that she can jump from man to man. Because when she has a problem with her man, she tries to jump to another man, and that man doesn't tell her, take your ass back to your man and settle your issues out. That's why I always tell you brothers, when these bros jump on my channel, in the comment section, the first thing that I ask them is about their husbands. And there's chicks on my channel that I know for a fact don't have no damn husband, but they try to act like they do. It's whatever, I don't really care. But at the end of the day, we have to respect the order. That's where the respect comes from. That's if you're going to address the deep end of the pool and why the black man is not respected as an instructor or a teacher, which is what a coach is. It starts from the fact that he's not highly regarded within his own household.
There are not enough black coaches. Not enough, not enough, not enough. And then to maybe even stretch and deem this as racist. But the reality is, you come in my house that I own, we ain't equal.
Thank you, sir. I say that shit, yo. I love when these dudes come on my channel, whether it's YouTube or Patreon, it's particularly YouTube. Cats that say, this is an open forum. No, bro, it's not an open forum. It's not a democracy. My channel is not a democracy. It's a benevolent dictatorship. That's what it is. Just like my home, like the brother Marcellus Wiley just stated. Yeah, my home, we're not equals. I'm the king here. I'm a benevolent king. And hopefully you can keep it that way. But that's all it is. See, Marcellus Wiley, he thinks at a higher level. He can't say certain things because if you say certain things on TV, they call you a quote unquote coon and a sellout. But I've heard him break down the differences between equality and rulership, things of that nature in some of these segments. So brothers are starting to wake up. The equality stuff is a red herring to get so-called black people to maintain their subservience, especially the so-called black man. That's why you see these woke so-called black men always worshiping the Caucasian, the woman, and the homosexual and the lesbian.
a different set of rules.
Once again, for the so-called black man, if you want to flex, if you want to spread your wings, if you want to show your power, it's not going to happen by begging. It's actually going to happen through detachment. People respect you more when you detach. If you have a falling out with your quote-unquote significant other, is she going to respect you more if you move on? Or is she going to respect you more if you come back and beg her? I promise you, when the woman tries to go through that breakup, makeup bullshit, if you're dumb enough to try to keep that broad in tow, she's not going to respect you, even if she stays around. And she's going to know after that she can utilize hair trigger machinations for whatever you do, because now she has you as her pet slave, or as her vassal, as her flunky, whatever you want to call it. People respect you more when you understand that you have options, and that your connection with them is based on a mutual understanding and a mutual level of benefits. You cannot look at someone and say, I need them, and they don't feel like they need you, and think that you're going to get anything positive out of the relationship. You have to flex your power and spread your wings by letting people understand that you can and will leave if you're infracted upon. And these guys in the NFL, they don't do that. But it's difficult to do that because, once again, the NFL is a monopoly.
Being like,
and I think that people like to dance around the race issue because they're trying to maintain the American dream. It's really not incumbent upon the white man to say, I'm going to go out here and empower so-called black men so that hopefully within a couple of generations they could take me down. Because that is what is at the back of their minds. At the end of the day, once again, if it was so-called black men who were running these corporations, we would say to ourselves, we have to make sure that we leave the vestiges of our businesses and our estate to our sons, or people who look like us, so that we can maintain the rulership. I don't think that that's controversial.
I think,
and if it is, who gives a shit?
Most prized possession. You have kids. One day they're going to probably get married to somebody. Trust me, you're going to be sitting there, man, I hope this guy or girl shares the values of my family.
You know what ensures that the person that you give your child to has your values? That they were raised in the same culture. That's what brothers are kind of missing. Black people still believe that they have a culture, and black people still believe that the other races think that they have a culture. No, we don't have a culture, and the other races know it. That's why they don't entrust things to the so-called black man. And when they do bring along the so-called black woman, it's normally to use her as a sex slave, or what cats might call a concubine, or whatever. That's normally the case. People might not like that, but in my view, that's what it is.
I'm most prized.
I cannot say this enough. It's not up to the so-called white man to empower so-called black people. It's up to us to do that. We have to create options for ourselves. We have to show the so-called white man, if you're not going to give us a way or provide us with a way, we're going to make our own way. And when we make our own way, it's going to make us even more valuable, because now it starts a bidding war. Imagine if you had another football league. That's why they had the USFL and some of these other leagues. So back in the 60s, you had the ABA in the 60s and the 70s, because it would start bidding wars that made the value go up, that made the price tag for top athletes go up. So-called black people need that, but will the top black NFL athletes be willing to have their salaries cut by 80% for the sake of, quote-unquote, the cause? We know the answer is no. But this notion about football values, I mean, I'm just not buying that. I think that values are an extension of culture. And culture, at the end of the day, is not something that our people are known for. I know that that's something that people are not going to like. It is what it is.
Now you're saying it's just the football class, and we know that they're connected, and you can't.
Right, but the reason why that conversation is so circular is because our people, they never truly address the culture aspect. And because our people never address the culture aspect, and whatever excuse you want to make, you can use, whether it be black people were cut off from their culture during slavery, or right now we're in America and it's just too disjointed. At the end of the day, our people are trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. We're never going to be as successful as we can be until we embrace our culture, and that's not going to happen until a great calamity befalls this society, to put it bluntly. that's when that's going to happen. Because the mainstream religions are not truly based on any level of success for our people. They don't fit for our people, because the mainstream religions are just a watered down version of the Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system. And for our people, it's just never going to work. It's like someone who has a genetic predisposition to become ill from ingesting a certain type of food or liquid or what have you. It's never going to benefit our people. So that's why you'll see that the Arabs, they could become Muslims and they can flourish. But when so-called black people become Muslims, we still have a lot of the same problems. You see them in Philly, you see them in Chicago, in New York. Black people are Muslims and they still are having the same issues, because that's not really our culture. And I'm sure that a lot of Muslim cats might get upset by that. It is what it is. I'm not going to delve into Islam in this video. I'll say this though, Islam has a slightly better effect on our people than the so-called Christian church does, which does nothing but create whores. That's all the Christian church does, is create whores, particularly amongst the so-called black woman. When you hear the black woman say that she believes in Christianity, you know that she's easy. That's really what that means, because the Christian church embraces the energies of the mother goddess, and the mother goddess is the mother of harlots. But just to get back to the point, our culture is the scriptures. And when we get back to those protocols, everything is going to run far more seamlessly, because the man will be put back in charge of the environment like how he's supposed to be.
Separate the two. We're having is about freedom or equality. Race and class connected. Freedom or equality not connected. Let me break it down. When you have financial power to the tune of billions of dollars, yes, you have complete freedom in this world to do what you want.
Pretty much, until the tax man knocks on your door.
And then there are people that obviously you are connected with that want proper equal treatment. And that's where we have a problem.
Because they have a vassal mindset.
Because when you own something, no one else that is not part of that ownership is going to be treated equally.
Thank you, sir.
Case in point, layman's terms, all of us own a home. Not everyone walks in your house and has equal treatment to you, because it's your damn house. So the NFL, a private entity in a capitalist country, is sitting there saying, this is our house. Now, how did they get there? They had a hell of a head start. We all know.
Let me say this very quickly, not to cut the brother off, because he's making a lot of sense. But that's why you see the sudden uptick and the sudden surge in socialism. They're trying to push socialism through these little college kids, especially through the feminists and the simps and the wokety wokes. Because what socialism basically does is it makes people believe that if another person is more successful than you, then they owe you enough money from their coffers until you both have the same amount of money, even if you're a lazy bastard. That's why the first thing that socialist / Marxist politicians do is they promise the universal stipend every month and things of that nature. They want to get you lazy brained so that you count on their stipend. Once you count on getting free money from the government, now they can dictate whatever they want. Now they can come and say, well, you have to allow us to inject you with these syringes, and you have to allow us to take your children to these laboratories, to these schools, and your children must get taught this and that. So when you hear people trying to tear down capitalism, capitalism is not really the problem. The real issue is despotism and the military-industrial complex and greed. But capitalism, when held in check, there's nothing wrong with it. Like anything else, there has to be checks and balances. You can't tell someone who works hard and is extremely intelligent, you don't have the right to make this much money, and this person over here who's lazy and sits on the couch and smokes weed all day only have that much money. You have to give this person a certain amount of your money. No, that's not right. And that's why in every socialist / Marxist country on the planet, it leads to nothing but upheaval.
Go into that, but let's start right here. If you're a minority coach, you could continue to fight the fight of saying, I want more of us represented on the sidelines, which is a great fight, but that's medicine for a symptom. The surgery needs to occur up top in ownership that is going to fix the illness. Or all we're going to do is keep looking 20 years down the line and said 3 coaches from the Rooney Rule beginning, 3 coaches 20 years later, and that will continue.
I agree with you, sir, but I'm not quite sure if ownership is the very top.
One last thing, and I'm sorry. Progress is taken, not given.
Absolutely. So is rulership. This nonsense about equality, brothers. When you watch the Summer Olympics and they're about to run the 100-meter dash, those athletes, they don't train for years and years to come out in a tie. That's what equality is. They train to win. That's why they call it races, right? The white race, the black race, this race, that race, because it's a competition. You're either winning or you're losing. There is no equality.